Okay, so we've all heard the term technology gap, right? And on the surface, it seems pretty simple. Yeah, some people have the latest tech, some people don't, but what if I told you that simple little phrase is actually hiding several different, massive divides? We're talking about chasms that are shaping everything from a kid's education all the way up to the entire global economy. Let's dig in and break it down.
So, seriously, when I say technology gap, what's the very first thing that comes to mind? Is it a kid in a rural area without internet? Or is it maybe something bigger, like companies or even whole countries? Just lock that idea in your head for a second.
Yeah, because it turns out that one term is doing a lot of heavy lifting. I mean, PCMag points out there are at least 4 distinct meanings, everything from the gender gap in the tech world to the race between companies for what's next. Now, all of those are super important, but for right now, we're going to focus on 3 huge divides that kind of stack on top of each other. The gap between people, the one between companies, and the biggest one of all, the gap between entire nations.
All right, let's start with the one that probably popped into your head first. This is the tech gap at its most personal, right? The one that hits individuals, families, and whole communities. You've definitely heard its other name, the digital divide.
So what is the digital divide, officially? Well, according to the European Training Center CEDAFOP, it all boils down to one simple but incredibly powerful word: access. See, it's not just about whether you have the newest iPhone. It's about the fundamental ability to get online, to learn, to participate in our digital society, and more importantly, what happens to the people who are left on the outside looking in.
And you gotta understand, this lack of access isn't just some minor inconvenience. This has huge consequences. Just imagine being a student trying to do homework or log into a virtual class, but your family can't afford a computer or even just a stable internet connection. PCMag highlights this exact point. This is where the digital divide becomes a real barrier, creating serious educational inequality and putting kids behind from the get-go.
But it's not just a simple have versus have-not situation. It's way more nuanced than that. CEDAFOP explains that you can slice this divide in so many different ways. Is there a gap between generations? Yep. Between different income levels? For sure. Between people in the city and people in the countryside? Absolutely. And the answer to all of these is a big yes, which just goes to show you how complex this one issue really is.
Okay, so that's the gap on the personal level. Now let's zoom the camera out a bit. What happens when you see this exact same dynamic but playing out between companies? Well, at this scale, a technology gap isn't just about having access, it's about pure survival. It's literally the difference between dominating your industry and getting left behind in the dust.
Wikipedia actually has a perfect real-world example of this. Picture 2 banks, right in the same city. Bank A is using all the latest automation. Their processes are lightning fast, cheap, and super reliable. But Bank B, they're still doing most of their payments and processing by hand. That means they're slower, their costs are higher, and they make more mistakes. Now, which bank do you think is going to make more money? Which one is still going to be around in 5 years? That is the corporate tech gap in action.
And here's the thing. This race, it never, ever stops. There's this great quote from a Cisco executive talking about 5G. He basically said, look, it's not like one company is just going to win 5G and that's it. There's a much longer race after that. And he's right. Technology is always moving. The second you think you've caught up, the next big thing is already here. This gap is always shifting. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
All right, time to zoom out one last time to the biggest level there is, the gap between entire nations. And this isn't just something we've noticed happens. It's actually a formal economic theory, a theory that explains how technology fundamentally shapes international trade, and really, who holds the power on the world stage.
This is where we get into something called the technology gap theory, which was actually figured out way back in 1961 by an economist named M.V. Posner. And the core idea? It's simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It's that innovation gives a country a huge head start. When a nation invents something new, for a while they basically have a monopoly. They get to call the shots, they get to rake in the profits, and this is a big but, that advantage is always temporary.
So Posner's theory also explains how this gap eventually closes. It all comes down to these different lags in time. You've got the time it takes for the innovating country to even start selling their new product abroad. Then there's the time it takes for companies in other countries to figure out, hey, we need to copy that. And finally, there's the time it takes for people in those other countries to even develop a taste for this new thing. How long that initial advantage lasts all depends on how these different timelines play out.
And another economist, Raymond Vernon, built on this idea with his product life cycle model. It paints a really clear picture. Think of it in 3 phases. Phase 1, the product is brand new. It's only made and sold in the country that invented it. It's exclusive. Phase 2, the product starts to mature. Other countries are catching up, learning how to make it, and they usually start competing by selling it cheaper. Then comes phase 3. The product is now standardized. Everyone can make it. The special sauce is gone, and the original country has lost its monopoly. For that one product, the tech gap is officially closed.
And this isn't just some dusty old theory, okay? This stuff plays out in the real world with some truly mind-boggling differences. I mean, look at this data from 2017. You'd probably think two former Soviet countries like Armenia and Belarus would be pretty similar when it comes to tech, right? Wrong. Belarus exported almost 3 times more in tech services per person than Armenia did. And then you compare both of them to the developed nations. Whoa. The gap isn't a gap anymore, it's a massive chasm. This is what that national technology gap looks like when you boil it down to the raw numbers.
Okay, so we've broken this down on 3 different levels, right? The personal, the corporate, and the national. So why does it matter? Why is it so important to see them as different things?
Well, it matters because the technology gap isn't just one problem. It's this complex, multi-layered force that is actively shaping our world. It's what decides if a student gets to learn, if a business survives, and which countries get to lead on the global stage. And none of these gaps exist in a vacuum. No, they all feed into each other, creating this intricate web of who gets ahead and who falls behind. And it's happening every single day.
And that leaves us with one last and pretty huge question. We all know technology is moving faster and faster. I mean, it's accelerating like crazy. But what does that mean for all these gaps we just talked about? Is all this rapid change going to act like a bridge, helping more people and companies and countries finally catch up? Or is it going to be a wedge, driving the leaders even further ahead and turning these gaps into massive, uncrossable chasms? You know, the future of inequality might just hang on that very question.